He-Man superhero graphic?
I mean, you could certainly put your own face on that. It wouldn't probably look a lot different than the one they put for me.
Okay. So then I did this in AI, obviously, off of an idea from you. So if I was going to make my own version of that, what would your suggestion be?
Well, I would think that rather than Castle Grayskull, you'd have to have some form of snowy, icy kind of a thing, like maybe like the Fortress of Solitude of Superman in the background. So first of all,
so do we keep it in the He-Man universe? Do I make it did He-Man have a teammate?
Man at Arms.
Or do I go, or since I'm like across from you, opposed from you, do we go with like a
You could be Skeletor.
Do we go with a Skeletor? So something like that.
That's outstanding. Yes, that. Yes, that right there. That. You get the eyes though too. That's pretty remarkable. Well, we are live from the Day Studio at 200 State Street, New London, Connecticut. It is time for the Eastern Connecticut Boys Basketball Power Rankings, courtesy of He-Man and Skeletor. Peter Huoppi and myself are going to dive into some boys basketball rankings. I think it's important, again, to note live from the Day Studio in 200 State Street, New London. And the reason I think that's important is I want people to know that we are generating this from our cozy studios where if you can't see behind us, but there are charts and graphs and there's how many different TV screens are playing replays of high school games behind me right now? I mean, can you even count that? I mean, it's hard to count.
Can't count them.
So when we are, I have an abacus. That's all I'm saying. Helps me chart. Boys basketball and girls basketball, I've been looking at them both. Girls is a little tougher in some respects because some of our teams are off to really tough starts. The boys are tough for the opposite reason. A lot of our boys teams are off to good starts. And it's kind of difficult. They haven't all started playing each other yet, so it's a little difficult to navigate it. But there are a couple of small changes, but only a couple of small changes in the power rankings. Now, keep in mind, we've had another week of games. I think starting this week into next week is when we're going to start to see the biggest change because teams are starting to play each other, and that will obviously go a long way. So Fitch was 1 in the last power rankings. They stay at number 1. They're 4-1. Their only loss was to Northwest Catholic. I think that you can already see that Caden Simons-Gaskin is incorporating himself into that duo with Xavier Good and Sakis Reels, like that big three. They're exciting. Obviously, there's been some. They've had to do this without their head coach, and I only think that as they continue to grow, Fitch's upside remains pretty high, but they're going to stay at number 1.
No ECC opponents yet. Am I correct with that?
Correct.
And so that's what makes this really hard. Is like, what does a win over? Who did they put recently? Innovation. Like, what does that mean when you're trying to compare them to a New London, an NFA, a Griswold? Really hard to parse.
Which is why the game, though it's not an ECC opponent, their game on January 3rd is against Old Lyme. And knowing what we now know of having seen Old Lyme against a very good ECC opponent, I'll be interested to see what that game looks like. So yeah, they're tricky for that reason. Less tricky, my confidence level in number 2, remaining the New London Whalers, is that the Whalers at 3-1, they just beat Wilbur-Cross, but we watched them live here on game day in the Holiday Classic. We watched them in overtime against NFA win that game, and I think we saw the compliment sandwich, right? We saw them run out to a 19-point lead, showing all of the skills that this group, especially the starting 5, has. Plus, he got to play 8-9 deep, and they got out to a 19-point lead. They then blew a 19-point lead by going stagnant with the basketball, relying on too many outside shots, letting the shot clock wind down so that they rush, which we saw them have some problems with last year. They lost their 19-point lead. But to their credit, they then rebounded in overtime and played really good basketball to win that game in overtime. And I think Coach Cornish has something with this group. And I think they're a solid. That Fitch-New London game, I think, is going to be a must-watch.
Yeah, I think if you're Coach Cornish, you worry about that if that's happening in game 18 of the season. If that's happening in game 2 or 3 of the season, that's something you can work with.
I agree. The little teeny asterisk to it is there's no more veteran group than J.J. Robinson and the Halls. And so you kind of hope that maybe that they'd be a little farther more advanced than that. But Kyer Young is starting to get very comfortable as a Whaler. He had a big game last against Wilbercross. I think as he continues to get comfortable with that group, their ceiling goes up.
100%. And based on everything we've seen, I still say it's the best starting 5 I've seen. I'm off to see Fitch this afternoon, and so that might change my opinion.
Yeah, but that's going to be I agree with you on that. Moving up to number 3, the undefeated Old Lyme Wildcats. They are, they are predictable. There are no surprises. They are well coached. They are unflappable. Eddie Fisk is not ever the flashiest player on the floor, but there's never a more productive player on the floor than he is.
So there was a comment on the live stream when we were awarding him the Roberto's Log Cabin Player of the Game. And I don't know what context this person was coming from, but sort of like, what? This guy's the player of the game? Which if you didn't watch the whole game, if you didn't have stats, if you just saw a couple, I don't know that there was a single play that made me stand up and go, wow, the way that a J.J. Robinson or a Kyer Young or Caden Kozlowskis, or Colby Mills, a whole slew of players on NFA. There's a bunch of highlights from different players that made you stand up and go, wow. It's really impressive that someone like Eddie Fisk can not make you notice until the end of the game, and then you look at the resume for the game and say, "Ooh, this guy dominated."
How do you score 30 points with 15 rebounds, and people are going, "Really? What did he do?" He is the least flashy star I think we've ever had as far as product. No one's productivity is higher. The law firm Coleman Curtis Reardon is, I think, again, a guy that you don't ever quite. But you look at his stat line, and he fills the stat sheet across the board. Billy the Kid McKeever can flat out shoot it. Even when he doesn't have a good shooting night, he's a threat to knock it down at all times. I thought they were very Old Lyme-like. And at the end of the year, this team's going to be in the mix.
And so I was planning to ask you, we've got 2 unbeaten teams. How long does one of these teams have to go unbeaten into the season before they rise above these teams ahead of them may have a loss or 2?
Well, the answer is
as you mentioned.
The answer is the third.
We're going to find out. Yeah.
The answer is the third, because I'll tell you right now, and New London's going to get mad at me, but if Old Lyme beats Fitch, I will probably put them in the 1 spot until New London, and they play a few more games. But that would be very impressive. You can't argue the resume. So, staying with the unbeatens, rising up from 6 to 4, Grasso Tech. Big win over Wyndham Tech. We were wondering exactly where they stood. You see Grasso's schedule, and they are deep and they are talented. You know there's going to be some bad juju, Julius Washington every time, but you start to see, you see Peanut. I love the nicknames. I just call them. You got Peanut and Cha Cha, but you got. They are a talented group. They're a deep team. I think last year taught him, to Coach Tim Strong, that they need to up the defensive ante, meaning their practices need to focus on locking down a little bit more, and early season results have been pretty good.
And I want to see them in some of these crossover games because like they may have a legitimate claim to know, hey, we've got the best starting five among this group. Because, I mean, they've got a group that started all last season coming back fully intact.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Julius Washington was a starter at 2 ECC schools as a freshman and a sophomore, and so he could play anywhere. Here comes my first controversial pick. Staying at number 5, despite a loss to New London, is NFA. That win, we saw, if you watch this week's Grade 8, you'll see Tavion Brown knocking down a 3 to send the game versus Killingly, previously undefeated Killingly, into overtime where NFA got its first win. And we had talked about their overscheduling. They needed that win against Killingly, something fierce, because you look at the teams, they're still playing the Northwest Catholics of the world. They don't have an easy game on their schedule in the next week or two. But that game against New London could certainly have gone their way. I think I talked to Coach Brown after the game, and he really liked that unit we saw, the energy unit, I called it, that's played a large portion of the game. And then you saw Brown knock down that 3 and then win an OT. I went through this with soon-to-be athletic director Giusti. They might be 10-10. I mean, they could be fighting to get the 8th, 9th, 10th wins, qualifying for the tournament, and they might win the ECC tournament.
It's hard to put a team that has one win ahead of a bunch of teams that have 3 or 4.
Yes.
But if you're going to go to overtime against the number 2 team in a game that you could have won, right? They were one play away from winning that game. Now here I am backing you up on this, which I guess I don't want to do. So if I would shuffle these around. I would drop a team lower, having only one win. But I guess you have an argument here.
Well, I understand that you made this argument for NFA in football, so it's hard to it's harder in basketball because there's more games.
Right.
And it's going to, I'll tell you this, NFA sits at 5. There's a good chance that in next week's power rankings, I am forced to drop them lower if they don't win games. But they won their game last night against a previously undefeated team on the road, so I'm leaving them put. The team that probably has the biggest gripe is the team that drops from 3 to 6, and that's Griswold, because their loss was to an undefeated Old Lyme team in a competitive game in the Holiday Classic. And they have that win on the road against Stonington is a big win. Do I think Griswold stays at 6? I really don't. I think of all the teams on this list, Griswold is likely to rise. I would not expect them to stay at 6. It'll be hard for them to crack the top 3 unless they can win a head-to-head against one of those teams. But they do have a chance to play Grasso Tech head-to-head as well. That'll be alive on game day as well.
I mean, this is where it gets messy because I would argue for Griswold ahead of NFA. I might argue for 1 or 2 of the next 2 teams on this list to be ahead of NFA.
So I'm actually flipping the script right now, and I'm gonna before I say which comes in which. So Killingly and Stonington were 7-8 last week. They're 7-8 again this week, and I have no real reason to put Stonington ahead of Killingly. They have the same record. Killingly's only loss was in overtime to NFA, and yet I am moving Stonington up to 7 because I really think that so Killingly's only loss overtime to NFA. Stonington's only loss overtime to Griswold. I don't know what to make of it. More games will play it out, but I love Elijah Cornell. I love what Stonington's group has, and I think this Stonington team is good.
Yeah, I agree. I would have a hard time dropping them lower, and maybe it's recency bias. Like the loss came at this point more than a week ago. The Killingly loss is fresh. I mean, this is a good problem for us to have in this chart. That there's a lot of arguments to make, and there's a lot of people out there who are going to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put a little ribbon on it at the end. But coming in at number 8, the aforementioned Killingly Trailblazers. I mean, you were 7, you were undefeated, you lost to NFA in overtime, you drop a spot. I mean, again, I like this Killingly team. Coach Crabtree loves this group. Crowley is lighting it up. Sumner is, an excellent player. This team's good. They don't surprise anybody. Like, everyone knows they're good. Would not surprise me. That division is going to be theirs for the taking.
Yeah, 100%. I look forward to seeing them in some of these crossover games and see where do they actually stack up against the big boys of this league.
Staying at number 9, Wyndham Tech. Their only loss to Grasso Tech. They bounced back with a win on the other side of it. I think more than anything, they're staying at 9 because there is no other school of the schools that were left out that has made enough of a case to jump in. If you look at, before I named 10, but St. Bernard's just played only one game, and it was against an opponent that they really weren't in the same league as, and it was not competitive. Bacon Academy only has one win. Waterford only has one win. Woodstock only has one win. It's kind of hard to put a team ahead of Wyndham Tech, right, when there isn't anyone else to choose from. So Wyndham Tech stays at 9. Now here comes number 10, and I'm going to give you a caveat. I can't seem to find, and if someone can message me in the next 30 seconds, did Montville beat Plainfield? I can't find it on the CIAC website. I can't find it anywhere. Did Montville beat Plainfield last night? Because if Montville beat Plainfield, they're my number 10 team, bumping Ellis Tech, who lost for the first time, out of the top 10. But if they lost to Plainfield, Ellis Tech stays as my number 10 team, and I don't have all the information, Peter.
Well, we can vamp for a minute and see if somebody in the chat has that answer for us.
All right, so while we're efforting, did Montville boys beat Plainfield last night?
So the other contender for that
Ellis
is
Tech.
Ellis Tech remaining there, who made the last power rankings because they were undefeated.
And
they have lost a game.
They have.
So an argument to be made, and the game was canceled.
The game was canceled, which is why I don't have a score. So you have Ellis Tech at 3-1, Montville at 2-1, and Montville would have been 3-1 with a win, which is why I would have had him bump Ellis Tech. So Ellis Tech is going to stay in the 10 spot this week. Montville, by the time we have them live next Friday, January 9th against St. Bernard, will have had a chance to bump back in. If Montville had won that game, I was going to bump them into the 10 spot. And I remember they were in my initial poll, and I think that loss to Waterford when they had Chung was injured for the second half. I still think Montville's Coach Sear's a good coach. I think they're going to be in the mix. So let me put the bow on this. I am very confident that the top 2 teams in this power rankings are the top 2 teams in the league. I am very confident that Old Lyme belongs on this, at the top of the remaining schools. You could throw 6 of these schools into a hat and pick them out, and I don't know that you'd be wrong. Outside of Grasso Tech, who's undefeated, but if you took NFA, Griswold, Stonington, Killingly, and you threw them all into a hat and reshuffled them 5 through 8, I don't know that you could.
I mean, and this is where it becomes kind of a vibes, impressions-based power rankings. I was messaging with a game day fan on social media who was kind of pressing me for, how do you decide if a 4-0 D5 team is better or worse than a 3-1 D2 team?
So that's a great question, and I'll go back again and remind everybody that example is a tough one, right? But this is not the 10 teams that I think are the 10 best teams. This is the teams that are the best teams when given the record and the possibility of the record. So, for example, Old Lyme is undefeated. Fitch has 1 loss to Northwest Catholic. I think Fitch at 4-1 versus Old Lyme at 4-0, when Fitch's only loss was to Northwest Catholic, allows them to stay there. But I can't put, if a team is 5-0, they're going to be like, this was Bacon Academy in football, right? If you're 5-0, you're going to make the poll. I'm not saying that I think you're better than the team but 4-1, when you only have one loss, that's a little bit hard. It's when you get into like an NFA team that's 1-4. Do they belong? Do they belong in the power rankings? Do I think that they're one of the top 10 teams? Yes, but that's not what this is. So yeah, I get people's difficulty.
Yeah, I guess I would make the argument that 1-4 is 1-4, and you don't deserve to be in the top 5. You absolutely have the potential to claw your way back based on how the rest of the season goes, but that's tough to be a one-loss team playing in your division in the schedule given to you and not get the credit for that.
I think Griswold probably should be 5 and NFA 6 in these rankings. I can't put Stonington ahead of that because Griswold beat Stonington and NFA just beat Killingly. So Killingly and Stonington would have to stay behind Griswold, but NFA could. So if you wanted to, if Stonington says, well, we should be 6 and Griswold should be 5. Yeah, I remind you that these rankings have absolutely zero impact on anything at all other than your own conversation pieces. And the best way to impact them is to play well and win games, and then things work themselves out. That sound right?
That sounds right.
As always, if you are a business or a company and you would like to sponsor the Eastern Connecticut boys basketball power rankings and the girls power rankings, please reach out to me on social media and I will have a conversation with you. We'd love to have a sponsor for the power rankings, our weekly content live here from the Day Studios on State Street in New London. And we're going to keep rolling. We have girls power rankings coming out this week as well. Mike DeMoro and I will be back in the mix next week as we head into the new year with our weekly segment as well. And so, boys basketball, girls basketball heating up. The other sports I'm starting to see as well. Wrestling is getting deep into the mix now as well. And I haven't seen a lot of fencing results yet, but I know they're starting. Swimming, I see who's off to a good start. I saw the talented young Mr. Huoppi out in the bullpen earlier. He's off to a good start himself personally. Some good swimmers. I know there's not a deep, no pun intended, but I guess it is, a deep pool of ECC boys, but we have some very talented swimmers. That invitational should be very, very good.
Yes. I mean, based on my personal investment, I'm looking forward to that, but looking forward to seeing some of those top athletes who we saw last year, see how each of them have improved over the 12 months. That should be fun.
So as always, we're going to give you cheerleading championships. We hope to bring you wrestling championships, the swimming championship, the fencing championship, everything we can get to you, boys and girls basketball, as always. So until next week, tell me why I got it wrong. Tell me what I need to do better. If you want to sponsor it, give me a shout. But I am always right, and the crystal ball